Welcome everyone to another episode of 10 Minute Poker Tips. I have a special guest today. His name is Jared Griener. He has $3.2 million in poker tournament earnings. He has one circuit ring and he has incredibly made four WPT main final tables, which is absolutely insane. I played with Jared a whole bunch of times, so I'm not surprised to see these results from such a good player. But thank you for coming on the show, man.
Thank you. Appreciate the kind words. Happy to be here.
So today you're going to talk a little bit about cash games, actually, even though you have such incredible like tournament accolades. So maybe talk a little bit about did you start with cash? Or you start with tournaments? Like what was that kind of transition for you like?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting journey I've been on over the last couple of years. So I got a pretty late start to poker. I turned 21 in 2007, so I'm kind of this a lot of these guys that got into the online poker boom and everything, but I did not. I grew up very religious in Utah. I had no exposure to poker whatsoever.
Wow.
um, until I was in like my early 20s. And at that point, watched the World Series on TV, saw stuff like that, but like never really played. And then somebody invited me, or it wasn't even an invite. We were just doing a sales gig out in New York, and we all lived together in these apartments. And we played a little $5 home game, and they taught me the rules as we were playing, and I ended up winning. And that kind of got me like, wow, this is kind of fun. But at that point, even then, I could have been playing online. This was in like 2008, and then I didn't. I didn't know anything about it. I just kept grinding. The sales stuff I was doing. Kind of moved up the ranks. Became a sales manager for a big solar company. Moved out to LA for that, and for some acting stuff that I used to do out here. And then I think my first time I went to a casino out here, I went to the Gardens back when it was in a tent.
I didn't know about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I played cash games there for a little bit. Played at Commerce a couple times, and then my first tournament ever was a little daily at the Gardens that I ended up winning.
Nice.
And so
One for
then I was
one.
like, okay, this is more fun. That's not even on my hand mob too. So I only have one recorded first place win, which was my circuit first place, and then that daily.
That's unbelievable.
Attorneys. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like I've done a shot for six figures like multiple times in LA,
Yeah.
and like it just kind of worked out that like I had one big blind less than the other guy a couple times on
Yeah.
the shot. Like I played it out, I probably would have won a couple more. But anyways, I only played tournaments after that. Just cash wasn't really my thing. I enjoyed tournaments so much more. Obviously, kind of just ran hot. Right after that Gardens thing, I played tourneys maybe for like 6 months, and then I ended up winning 85K and like a quantum $250 buy-in, and it was kind of all uphill from that. I was like, wow, okay, I'm doing this, you know. So I kind of started just do consulting for the sales stuff after that because I love going. I probably was a big mistake to do that, to be honest. I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. But I ran very well. Improved a lot. Luckily, in 2017, I sat into the LAPC main event, and I ended up getting third for 430K.
Wow. What a score.
Yeah, that was fun. It was a sick final table too. I played with Mike Sexton. I think he got fifth. Um, Daniel Strelitz ended up shipping it.
Oh, that was the one he won. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I go back and think to that, man, I sucked at poker back then. Like I
Right.
was not good. I
Right.
thought I was the best, but I was not good. And after that, blasted away a lot of that money thinking I was good. But it was a good lesson. I kind of got involved afterwards with Chance Corneth, one of my best friends. He
Oh,
became my
cool.
coach, and
Nice.
that's what led me to become a better poker player. But anyways, I did that up until 2020. Uh, Basically, never played cash, and then obviously we all know what happened. COVID happened. All the tournaments shut down. I kind of stayed locked down, playing online and stuff for the first few months of the pandemic, and then uh, was in kind of a situation in my life where I wasn't really around anyone and was kind of over it. And some people hit me up about some massive home game that they were running. They ended up getting me in there, staking me in their game, and I was playing 5,100 cash games like 4 or 5 days a week for like a year. In these crazy environments, man. Like I could do a movie about all the stuff I saw during this time, but like I wasn't a great cash game player at that time, but I was playing in like the softest lineups imaginable, um, and had some good success there, and kind of realized at that point that like, well, tourneys are fun, but I think I can make more money playing cash, and kind of coincided with the way that things are in LA now is that the casinos out here, their kind of desire and appetite to run good tournament series kind of died away during COVID,
Yeah.
as you know.
Yeah.
So it became less viable to even do poker tournaments full time, unless you travel a lot, which I really wasn't in the mood to do anymore. I like being home most of the
Yeah. Me
time.
too.
Uh, I enjoy traveling, but not like over and over and over and over again.
Right.
Um, so, anyways, transitioned to cash and got involved with poker streams live at the bike. I was a commentator on that show for a long time, and in exchange for commentating, I got to play in the game.
Oh,
and
nice.
and then yeah, just kind of and everybody knows about this too, but the environments around cash games in general have become more privatized, I guess.
Yeah.
The public games just got way too tough, and the recreational players were just not loving it anymore. If you go to Commerce today and play the biggest game there, it's ridiculously tough.
Yeah.
The 10 20 40 game there, no cap game. Sometimes, you'll walk in there and it's like literally all regs,
Yeah.
like not exaggerating.
Yeah.
And it's just like the top regs are there because they think that the worst regs are bad. And, that's
Crazy.
true.
Yeah.
But, the worst reg in the game doesn't think that he's the fish, but
Yeah.
he is.
Yeah.
But once in a while, there's a one guy that I've heard about sits down and loses 150K in 24 hours and plays, and that's when the game gets sick. It's just some people will show up that don't care and play, but in general, it's just not a spot to make money unless you're very very good and willing to grind out the small edges. However, on the flip side of that, there are private games held at the casino every single day in LA that the casino facilitates that are invite only. The home game scene is not an environment you want to be in these days. It wasn't even when I was during COVID, like the rake is super high, but I was kind of getting staked in a situation where it was almost a free roll for me. I wasn't gambling my own money in those. I never would have, but
Yeah.
um, and, I made a decent amount, but I'm also owed a very large sum from a lot of those games.
Yeah.
Just because the games fell apart, the host didn't pay, people lost and didn't pay, etc. But anyways, that doesn't happen in a casino game. You buy your chips,
Yeah.
you play. So
Nice.
it's kind of like a private game, but the rake is low. There's no shenanigans. You're not risking your life.
Right.
To be honest, so there's some crazy stuff that happens at home games sometimes.
Yeah.
Legitimately, like people have been killed.
Yeah.
In LA at a couple home games. But anyways, so now mostly what I do is I play cash games multiple days a week. Play the good tourneys in LA, but the cash games that I'm playing are unique in that you can only play if you're invited. And so it's been a unique kind of journey for me, learning how to get in those games, understanding kind of how to adjust my style of play in the games, and also just the type of game that it is a little bit different than what most people are used to. It's not something that there's really tools out there to study for either.
Yeah.
Just because of these side games. If you guys have ever watched Hustler or any of these other stream games, usually there's some kind of prop game or side game going on that kind of changes the action a decent amount. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. Is I mostly play cash, play some tournaments, go to the World Series every year, play the good 1Ks that are in LA, and then I'll go to a couple WPTs when I can. Like the win that's coming up here, I'll be there for that. So I guess I'm a cash game player now.
Yeah, so being able to get into those cash games is kind of a big deal, and I feel like most of the community have no idea how that kind of stuff works. So I'd love to hear your insights on how you get into those games, and then maybe you can even give some tips to poker players. Like, these are the things that you're doing that prevent you from getting invited to these games.
Yes, exactly. It's kind of a tough thing. In my experience, to be really, really good at poker, most of us poker players that are on that level are a little bit on the spectrum, I would say.
Yeah, I think we all are. Yeah.
Yeah, and that also kind of like prevents you from socializing in a way that makes it feel like you're a fun person to be around.
Hmm.
Luckily for me, I was in sales before this, and I kind of developed some skills of how to make myself likable, how to get people to do what I want in a sense, I guess, or to present a certain image of myself. And that's really what it takes. I was very lucky early on through the home games that I played to meet a lot of these VIPs
Hmm.
that I became friends with, and just kind of using that relationship to get them to invite me into a game. Because look, if there's, especially this one guy who's a really good friend of mine, um, if he vouches for you and says, hey, I'll play, but I want my friend to play too, then I'm in the game. You know what I mean? Like they're not
Wow.
this guy. Whatever he says goes. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of gotten me to where, well, even now, where it's like he vouched for me once and said that now these other hosts are like, well, Jared's cool. You know, this guy said he's cool. You
Nice.
know, so they let me in. And then, you know, it's not just getting it. You get in once and then they don't like you, you're really probably not going to get in again. You know, if you hit and run, or if you just knit it up the whole time, or if you're just sitting there with your headphones on, you know, you're dead after that. So, you know, it's a lot of, and like, hey, I like to have fun. I like, you know, joking around. You know, I'll usually be the one drinking at the game. You know, to be honest, you know, if they offer a shot or whatever like that, I'm always going to say yes. Um, like I said, being creating more of an, even though I'm playing pretty tight, you know, relative to what the other players are doing. These guys are all pipping like 70%, you know, and so like I can't do that. I'm going to lose if I do that. But if you're, you know, not loud, but if you're engaged in conversation, you're joking around, you're doing things, and then like the spots where you do run bluffs, it's a situation where you always like I will never not show a bluff.
Right.
You know what I mean? Always, 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 because you want that image to be like in their mind. Well, like I saw Jared blast off with 9 high.
Yeah.
You know, I have to call, even though like it's kind of tricky because like in tournaments we're always trying to be balanced, right? We're always trying to like make sure that we're not exploitable. But in a cash game, like, you know, I'm not balanced at all. You know what I mean? Like if I'm jamming the river, you know, for massive amounts, like I have it like 80% of the time.
Right.
You know, maybe more, to be honest with you.
Right.
But that's fine because of the way that these games are. You know, these players are not the players that are going to fold very often. Nobody shows up there to hero fold. So yeah, I think it's kind of a combination of, you know, being socially active, you know, being willing to like participate in you know the drinking, or always straddling when the straddle's on, never being like, oh, I don't want to straddle,
Yeah.
or like, oh, if they want to raise the blinds, like I'll never object, even if suddenly this game is like, well, this is way bigger than what I signed up for. It doesn't matter, you know. You just have to like bite the bullet and be like, okay, like you if you're going to be invited to that game and you're a professional poker player, you cannot be the one that's objecting to anything. You know, so it can get a little scary at times, but that's just kind of what it takes to be invited back. And don't get me wrong, it's still a grind for me to get into games. I'm having to hit up these hosts a lot of time, like, hey, let me know if there's a spot that opens. Oftentimes I get hit up last second because someone cancels or no shows, and I blast over there. Sometimes, and it kind of sucks, but sometimes I'll be in a game where they'll let me play until a certain VIP shows up because they want to get the game started. I show up on time, I help them start the game. And, you know, it's a situation where like multiple times they've told me at the beginning, like, hey, you can play, but if this particular player shows up, you've got to give him your seat. And I've been in there stuck 15K, and then the guy walks in the door and they're like, well, see you later. And, you know, that really sucks.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's what it takes to be able to play in these games. And if you compare like the hourly of one of these private games at the same stakes to like a public game with regs, like it's literally like triple. Like
Triple. Wow. I thought you were going to say 2x. Wow. Yeah.
yeah, no, I think so. Like I'm just guessing. Like you're playing like a reg battle game of
Yeah.
like
I can see it.
50,
Yeah.
you know, compared to like a game where like I'm not kidding you, like I am the only professional poker player in the game playing 25-50.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it can't be quantified. Like, it's a crazy difference.
Yeah. So it seems like networking obviously is super important, and just being, you know, kind of a nice person and a friendly person. And I know that you have kind of sharpened your skills with sales and all stuff like that, but you know, that's kind of not part of your nature. You probably can't fake it too much, right? So I think there has to be something about you that's a little bit friendly. But you know, what are the couple of like top one or two things that you think, you know, a bunch of these misregs are doing, right, that prevent them from getting invited into games?
Yeah, I think like there's definitely like a talent that I have for that that's not really teachable. So I can't say like there's some guys where you see them like I know they're a crusher, but like they're just drawing dead to ever be in this scenario because they just don't have it in them. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it's not, you can't fake it that much.
Yeah.
And like I'm not like faking being nice. Like I'm a nice guy. You know, I'm a friendly
Right.
person.
Right. Yeah.
But like sometimes you know there's some guys in there that are VIPs that are not, they're annoying. You know what I mean? Like I don't really enjoy being around them, but like obviously like I'm nice to them, and I have conversations with them, and I don't disregard them when they want to have a conversation. So yeah, I think a lot of players are just kind of unaware of that, and they're just kind of like in their own world. Um, Another thing too that I think is really important is the mindset, and I think tournaments taught me this, to just be pretty unfazed when I'm running bad or getting a bad beat.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen some players that are getting in these games sometimes that like, yeah, they're all happy and nice when things are going well, but like they get too outed for a 50K pot and suddenly like they don't want to talk.
Yeah.
They handle it very poorly. They get tilted, you know, they're muttering to themselves. They're just like, oh, how did that happen? And
Yeah.
like, don't get me wrong, like I'm not immune to that, but it's just sort of about like making it seem like you're unfazed by the money, I guess, a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
Because if you are really phased by it, then it gets in their mind that hey, this guy's just here to take my money. You
Right.
know, and that's the
Oh
reason
yeah.
he's here. And you know, when things are going poorly for him, he's not a happy guy anymore. Whereas like some of these guys think they're too rich to care, but like they'll lose a big pot and like they're still laughing and whatever. They don't give a fuck. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
think
try to like be that way, even though obviously inside I'm like dying. You know.
right. Yeah, I think these emotional intelligence kind of tips are really important for a lot of poker players. I see so many players as being so nitty about rules and everything like that, even in cash games and sometimes even in tournaments, especially versus new players when it's like totally unnecessary. But these are definitely the types of things that kind of make people don't want to be around you, you know?